All right, welcome to Buddy Book Club. I'm Dylan here with the Goiter of the Goblin King, Keith. What's up, buddy?
Heyo, how we doing?
I love that Goblin King Goiter. It's the best part of the whole movie.
What is it? Oh, the thing that's protruding out of his neck?
Yeah. Ugh, so good. Here at the Buddy Book Club, we're breaking down we're breaking down some box office bangers. And this week we're discussing The Hobbit. We're released our podcast of the book right before Christmas. So this time around, we're taking a longer look at the movie version. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or movie, reach out to us, or you could just slide into the DMs on buddybookclub.com, Twitter, Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify, so please download and subscribe. If you're one of the people in Casper, Wyoming, like, just shoot us a note. Just doesn't have to be anything. It could really just be a period. I just want to know that you're real. Unless this is some sort of like AI hub, the like Area 51 of podcast.
If anyone
bots
is listening to this at all, shoot us a note. If people are actually listening in any way. Otherwise, we're just talking to the void, which is what I usually do every day anyways, so yeah, it's fine.
Just, we want to hear from you. That's it. Okay, so the Hobbit movie. We're mixing up some movies in with the books. We have, 40 book episodes, and a lot of those have movies associated with them. So we're going to go through and kind of compare and contrast the book to the movie, kind of talk about the movie in general, and we'll be doing it for a variety of the books and maybe some that we didn't even read or weren't books in the first place, but we'll find that out later. Let's get into Stock Up, Stock Down about The Hobbit. Keith, what do you have for Stock Up?
Yeah, Stock Up, Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, the stock is all-time high for me, number one favorite comedy.
But you just keep doubling down. The stock keeps splitting. It's like Microsoft at this point. Why not?
Apple, probably, but yeah.
The one thing that really, really did not sit well with me is the end of the movie. They try to pull a Dumb and Dumber. The whole, just when you think you couldn't possibly get any dumber, you go and do something like this and totally redeem yourself. They try to do that, but it made no sense. 0 sense. He literally, the scene before.
By he, are we talking about Bilbo? Okay.
Yeah,
literally
the scene before, and this is the end of the movie, so spoilers, but takes his ring off and he's like, I'm here. And they're like, why'd you come back? And he gives his speech. He's like, it's about finding your home. It's this really heartwarming scene, right? And you're like, oh, okay, like I get it. And then the next scene, literally the next thing that happens, they get in this big fight. He proceeds to save the main dude. What's his name? Talon?
Thorin Oakenshield?
Yeah.
Talon? What are you playing Zelda Ocarina of Time over there?
He proceeds to save his life by defending him and battling the orcs there, whatever the fuck they are.
Yeah, they are.
And orcs. Then they like get saved by the eagles, and then the guy tries to pull the Dumb and Dumber on him.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense, D-Man. Make it make sense. What's going on?
It didn't make any sense. Like, people would be like, wait, is he still upset with him? It's like, no, he literally just saved his life. Like, you couldn't possibly be
He wasn't
mad
even upset with him before that, though. What was he upset about him before? It didn't make sense.
I mean, Thorin, he's like super grumpy. I feel like he's grumpier in the movie than he was in the books, right?
It seems like that actor was playing in a different movie. He was just serious and like mean the whole time, and you're like, wait, what's going on here? Why is this one dude like this?
Also, was he Rob Zombie?
That's a good point. It could have been. Was he more human than human?
I feel like the makeup people are just like, instead of face prosthetics, let's just make him look like Rob Zombie. Yeah, no, he was brooding the whole time, and everyone's going for Erebor. Like, they all have their plan, but it's going to be a long journey. Like, you can't be pissed off the whole way. You gotta let loose a little bit. So, I mean, Thorin's gonna have like an embolism or something. He's so tense,
Yeah.
He needs an old fashioned just to get a release, because good God, he's just too up in himself, So I can't explain that last part. I agree with you. It didn't make any sense to me. It was like, why would you be mad at Bilbo anymore? He was mad at him in the first, not like mad at him, but like, what is he doing here? Because Bilbo is a fish out of water and not a burglar, not a warrior, not anything. So I get why Thorin felt like he was just like baggage. The only real reason Gandalf brought him around, and they even say it in the book, is that dragons don't know what hobbits smell like, and they're small. It's like, oh, okay, so we're going to take him on a 4,000-mile road trip just so that at the end, hopefully, the dragon won't smell him. So I get it, but I don't get the last part. Yeah, switcheroo didn't make any sense.
No.
My first stock up is throwing money at a problem. So if you're ever in a situation where things aren't looking good, you just throw money at it and it'll fix itself out. You got problems in your relationships, like just throw money at it. That's what Tony Soprano did. He taught us everything about throwing money at a problem. Mm-hmm. And in this case, Peter Jackson and co., they just threw money at this thing. I mean, the CGI, the set pieces, the scenery, like the helicopter shots, all of that is gorgeous, like so well done. The script, the movie itself, like what happens in the scene by scene basis, not that good. So it's kind of like he put a diamond on a cubic zirconia necklace or something. I don't know. And so the shiny part looks good, but the rest of it's kind of trash. But hey, it made up for it a little bit. You agree, right? It was beautiful.
Yeah, I was thinking this actually would have been nice to see in the movie theaters, even though the plot itself wasn't nice to see in any theater. But yeah.
The plot had a lot of holes and also just a lot of filler in it, which makes little sense. It had so many weird holes, but also just long scenes that really didn't make any sense. So, no. But I thought like the CGI, and we'll get into some of that stuff, was really good. The scenery, I mean, I've always wanted to go to New Zealand after seeing the original Lord of the Rings stuff. That they brought back in a very good way. It's just fucking gorgeous.
Wait, did you think it was funny?
Funny? No. Yeah, I wouldn't even say this movie's like silly. It definitely tries to be at some points, but it was like pathetic, if that's what you mean.
Silly as in like didn't make any sense.
Yeah. Silly as confusing.
Yeah, right, correct.
Okay, what else do you have for stock up?
Stock up? Ugly people?
Oh, hey, as an ugly man, how dare you?
You did already mention the goiter, but I did notice that this whole movie, you were either ugly as sin or really good looking. Which
really, really, really ridiculously good looking.
Which for both of us, would be great. Not saying which group we fall into, obviously, but...
we both know.
Yeah. But in the other side of the coin, average Joe... kind of stock down, huh? Like you basically, if you're just an average looking person, they're like, we don't have room for you. You either have to be a troll or you have to be like a beautiful elf. Like there's no in between. Get the fuck out of here.
So what about Radagast? Where does Radagast fall in there?
I don't know who that is.
What? Did you watch the movie?
I didn't know any of the names of any of these people. They just kept on paying homage to like old shit. Who are these people? Like, I haven't seen the Lord of the Rings in forever. So I'm like, what? What's going on?
Okay, so I guess just quickly, I'm going to talk more about the ugly people, attractive people, but...
Will you say radish? Is that a salad? What was his name?
Radagast. So you saw the Lord of the Rings movies maybe years ago, haven't revisited them.
Yeah, and with that being said, this movie made no sense for half the movie when they were just bringing old characters back in that I didn't remember. I was like, oh, that guy was in the old ones? That's it. That's the only reason he or she's here.
Yeah. So you never had revisited Lord of the Rings, never read the books, you weren't really into the whole Tolkien verse in general, is what I'm getting.
No, yeah, I mean, you either do that or you go Star Wars. I want the Star Wars.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that on the Hobbit book podcast. I mean, got you. Oh, okay, so I could see how this is not something that you're super paying attention to. How many times do you pick up your phone?
A lot.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So Radagast is the other wizard, the guy that has the bird shit in his hair.
Okay.
Radagast the Brown.
I had no idea why he's in that movie. He's one of my hates. I was like, who is this guy? Was he in the original Lord of the Rings?
In the original Lord of the Rings, no. But in the Hobbit book, I think Frodo asks Gandalf if there are other wizards or something like that. He's like, well, yeah, there's Radagast the Brown and like two other blue wizards who I don't know their names.
I barely remember names as it is. What was his point in the movie? I didn't get that.
This makes me so much more excited to talk Foundation with you later because there's so many names.
I'm going to have to do a deep dive into the wiki of Foundation. There's zero. I'm like just grasping that book. Just barely grasping it.
Okay, so Radagast, the guy with all the poop in his hair. I assume you're going ugly?
Yeah, he's ugly.
What about Gandalf?
Gandalf is he's unique. So I would say I think he's an attractive, unique person.
Yeah. Plus he's got that staff, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He's got that thing on him.
Okay. I obviously like feeling Killy the young guys are good looking, but yeah, I think I can kind of agree with you.
But you can also look at all the 13 dwarves and like there's like 3 good looking ones and the other ones are hideous, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like, wait, what? There's no like, oh, and there's Joey Crack. He's just a normal looking average dude.
It also didn't make a ton of sense to me that they went full facial prosthetics with like 4 dwarves and then the rest were like Nah, like, we don't want to make you guys up every day. Like, you're just people. Like, you're just going to be people.
Right.
It's kind of confusing. And they were the young ones usually. So, like, the young ones, as they get older, do they just, like, grow giant noses? I don't understand. But, okay.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
My next stock up is having a well-stocked pantry. I mean, I paused that scene when they're in Bilbo's house and they go straight into his pantry / larder because holy smokes, it's like a room devoted to delicious food. He had like herbs and garlic hanging from the ceiling. He's got pork belly just sitting out there drying, plus all the other stuff. It was like, holy smokes. So as someone who likes to eat, and I have my own pantry, half the reason I bought my house is because it had a pantry. Granted, it's a small one, but I was like, yes, I need a well-stocked pantry in my life. And I was talking to a friend the other day. He was trying to make chop suey, and he's like, oh, I can't make it. Shoot, I don't have any tomatoes. I was like, buddy, you don't have a can of tomatoes? You don't keep a well-stocked pantry? Are you kidding me? Have you heard of Costco? Like, you go there and you buy them. And then
Say pantry one more time.
Pantry.
I actually do. I wish I had a pantry. I don't have one.
Oh,
but
my
go on.
God. It's something special. So, yeah, I just want to throw props at Bilbo because hobbits in general, they appreciate, the culinary arts. And unfortunately, those terrible dwarves, who I will not forgive, went in there and ransacked this joint and left it all a mess. I don't stand for that. And I hope no one else does. You don't do that to a friend or even a burglar.
This might be a confessional. You'll be the priest, D-man, and not the priest you're thinking of.
Okay.
But I used to do that when I was in middle school, high school. I'd go over to friends' houses, and if they had a well-stocked pantry, I'm going to town on it. That's just what I did.
I had a buddy. It was more of a cupboard than a pantry, but his mom.
What's the difference?
A cupboard, I feel like, is like you open two doors kind of thing. You open it up, and it's smaller. You know what I mean? A pantry is like a room almost, like a very small room, but. In his cupboard, they always had either like the Shark Bites, or the Looney Tune fruit snacks, or whatever the case was.
Well, I ranked the fruit snacks, and Shark Bites was number one.
I know, on BuddyBookClub.com.
Gotcha.
It was a blog. But we would just rent, like, she'd just come back from what she called the market, and we would just eat all the fruit snacks that you'd have friends over, and she would be so mad. Like, so
His mom
mad.
would?
Yeah. Because it's like,
why? That's the whole point of getting it.
That's what I said too. I was like, hey, why can you be mad at us? Like that's the point. But she's like,
you were talking to his adult mom.
Yeah.
Listen, Mrs. Jones.
Yeah, and I said, listen.
Why would you be quite mad about this?
Listen, Lee, as I got a face full of shark bites, I'm like, what's your problem? There's nothing wrong with that. Us
Go pick up more.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you only bought 3 boxes. That's on you.
Yeah. That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. If you're at Costco, it's go pick it up.
Costco, hit us up for sponsorship. Did you have any other stock ups, or are we going straight to stock down?
No, I got a stock down that's very on par with what you just mentioned. So,
okay, stock down. I hope it's not shark bites.
Stock down, symbolic food. Thing right in the lane that you were just talking about. Usually what a character eats really is important. Like if they're going to show it, that tells you a lot about them. You kind of determine... based off of what they're eating, what type of person they are.
Okay.
We see Bilbo in the first scene preparing a fresh salmon and vegetables, and then he's squeezing lemon on it.
Respect.
This is not the Bilbo Baggins I know.
What?
This is absolutely not. No, the Bilbo Baggins I know is making a big stew for himself. Maybe a pot pie. Maybe a lasagna. He's not eating healthy. He's eating unhealthy. He's literally should be the spokesperson for Chunky Soup. That's who that is.
What are you talking about? Where do you get that
Do we
idea?
read different people? He would eat 2 meals. He had everything. A meal had some sort of croissant or like dinner roll with it. What are they doing making him like this like D-man, metrosexual type character? We're doing a man's man here. This is a guy that enjoys his supper. He calls it supper. You can't call it supper and then eat a salmon.
I call it supper and I eat salmon all the time.
Yeah, I don't trust you.
But the point is that he eats multiple meals. It's not that he eats like a slob. He enjoys a nice
I will
piece
read
of roast
the book
fish.
again.
Yeah,
I can't believe you're against me. This is really one of my strongest takes. I can't believe you're against me on this. I'm pretty upset, honestly.
Honestly, I don't even understand the take. Because he eats salmon.
You really
and
thought he was just like, I really want to go back home, puff on my cigar, and eat a nice salmon. No. This is a man that eats stew all day, every day, and he eats multiple meals of it.
Well,
what are we doing here?
Honestly, the hobbits smoke pipes. They smoke pipe weed. A little long bottom leaf, perhaps. Some old Toby. Heard of it?
The sticky icky?
No.
Ooh-wee, put it in the air?
But they don't have cigars, and they eat all sorts of delicious food. They're connoisseurs of food. They don't make fucking boring stew. Oh, Campbell's chunky soup, like
First off,
4,000
Irish
milligrams
stew,
of
sir?
sodium.
You gonna insult me?
I love stew, but I'm just saying,
Okay.
I'm sure Bilbo eats stew, but he also can enjoy some vegetables and salmon, just like anyone else. How dare you?
Strong disagree. And the Bilbo I know, he just nothing about his character said I eat fish and vegetables. That's like
No.
It's just the opposite of like enjoying yourself. On Weight Watchers, and I'm caring about the next fucking magazine of Vogue or whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I just don't respect him.
Nothing about
If that's
Beaufort's character says that he eats fish and vegetables. Like, that guy doesn't even eat bacon. He just eats the grease off the pan. But you probably don't even know who Beaufort is, because I don't.
Beaufort is the one fat dude in it that
Yeah.
they made one joke about. Other than that, you had nothing in the whole movie.
Yeah, it actually, the best part of Beaufort is when they're doing the dishes, he just cleans all the plates. Like, they pass it to him, he eats all the whatever's left, and they give it to the other guy. It's great. Stock down nostalgia. And, I'm always down to wax rhapsodic about, great moments from the past. But the first bit of this movie, you were kind of talking about it earlier when you said there are characters that were in other movies that are just like in there for some reason. Mm-hmm. But the first bit of this movie, when it's Bilbo, like old Bilbo and Frodo, kind of before Gandalf comes for his birthday party, why is that in there? And trust me, I'm the biggest, I'm not going to be extreme. I'm a very big Lord of the Rings fan. I've seen the movies, each of them 10 times, who knows? But it was nice to see those characters again, don't get me wrong, but they were useless for this story. Like, this story needed to live completely on its own, and it's not like it was a quick scene. It was like went on for like 10, 15 minutes. It's like, what's happening here? And then it's all
It
of a
was
sudden
10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then don't wrap it up.
No, it's like, wrap it up here.
I mean, like at the end, they don't go back to that guy.
No.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, also, this is like part one of a 3-parter, so like,
yeah, but it should be its own movie. It should live on its own. It shouldn't have to be like, all right, now check out the movie in 2 years from now to.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense to have 10, 15 minutes of what was Lord of the Rings. I feel like they just added it in, but why add it into a movie that's already like 2 hours and 40 minutes long?
Right.
We know, as Lord of the Rings fans, it's just who's watching this, and just like everyone in general, Hobbit readers and just the world, we don't need that story. It didn't help with the Hobbit story. It just made this longer.
We're on the same page here. Considering we were so far off in the last one, we're completely on the same page here because my next stock down is pandering. That's what it is. It's just pandering.
Yeah.
And I don't really understand. Has anyone ever been like, oh, I'm so happy they brought X character back into here? And I got to, it's like, no one, there's no like movie series or anything that where like a character that gets forced back into the plot, like people are happy about. We're always like, yeah, why don't we just make a new story, like,
I actually enjoy a throwaway line here or there that it like pays homage to the previous one, because they even say that in the Lord of the Rings. They talk about, or Sauron says, talking about Gandalf, he said like, your love of the Hobbit leaf is like getting to your head or something like that, which is like kind of stonerish and funny. And then he says the same thing about Radagast, but he's been eating too many mushrooms. Like, that was enjoyable as kind of a callback. But having full scenes, and I know Gandalf's involved in this story, so yes, we need Gandalf in there. But pulling random characters, and it gets worse throughout the story. Like, Legolas comes back in, and I'm a huge Legolas fan. He's in the second one.
Oh, okay, gotcha. One. I mean, the whole Elrond scene, and like, I just
Elrond.
Like didn't follow the story. Elrond Hubbard, whatever his name is. The whole Elrond scene, it didn't make any sense. Like, could you explain what even happened there? I'm like,
okay, so that's one of my favorite
What are they
scenes.
talking about?
That was actually something.
What's going on? They keep on bringing these people in. Kate Blanchett's like doing mind signals to something. I'm like, what? Who are these people? What's going on?
Yeah. Okay. So this scene I actually enjoyed from this, and for zoom out a bit, this movie, The Hobbit, was supposed to be made into 2 movies. Guillermo del Toro was going to be the director, and he had this like more fairy tale-esque vibe to it, which actually seemed pretty interesting. Guillermo del Toro's fantasy stuff is really good. So he was supposed to do it, have more of a fairy tale vibe. It's supposed to be 2 movies. This is one of those movies that you could probably look into as like a study of how Hollywood works, because like different people owned rights to different things, like The Hobbit books, but then someone owned the rights to making it a movie, and like, so the 2 studios combined. It was like kind of crazy. but they only had access to the Hobbit book and the Lord of the Ring book. They didn't have access to any of the other works of J.R. Tolkien. So they probably should have just made, the book had enough information in it, like just to make the book. But because they wanted to extend it into 2, and then when Peter Jackson ended up taking over, they turned it into 3, they had a lot of space to fill. And in Return of the King, there's like an appendices which has like a ton of information in it. And in there was this White Council, which is what you were talking about. And in the book, Gandalf says, I gotta go, and basically goes to this White Council, and you don't see it. And so they basically filled us in on what was happening, which was all the talk about the Necromancer, who the Necromancer, it turns out, is Sauron.
The guy that's sitting on the council.
No, that's Saruman.
God damn. But here's the thing. They're setting up a meeting for something that doesn't even happen in this movie series. Like,
it does. Well, like, because basically they say...
No, in The Hobbit, it doesn't
happen in the book. It happens in the movies, though.
Oh, okay. So they at least tie it together. But, like, each movie should compass its own self. It shouldn't
That's
be
exactly what they did with, like, all the Star Wars stuff. It's like...
No, Star Wars, they didn't even know Luke's dad would be Darth Vader until the second movie when he wrote it in. Like, so
I'm talking about the extended stuff. Once they start getting outside of that, the Han Solo movie, it's like just a throwaway line in one of the original movies. It's like, I stole the Millennium Falcon off you at a gambling thing.
But that's my whole point. That's panned, right? Like, people did not like that at all. Make the movie its own entity, and then throw in throwaway stuff when you can, but don't make... It's not like, well, we have to put this guy in, so therefore we'll just make a scene that isn't tied to this movie in any way. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah,
like,
they were trying to, like, pull the whole Sauron storyline into this. I agree with you in that it doesn't make any sense for the story, but for me, as a Lord of the Rings fan, like, this is
pandering,
this is
sir.
canon,
it's pandering.
and I enjoyed it.
Do you like when politicians pretend that they're sports fans of teams?
No.
It's the same thing. This is exactly the same thing.
I don't.
It's like, this will be for them. They'll be happy about this. That's you, D-Man.
My last stock down is changing directors last minute on a $200 million movie.
Yeah. Your stock downs and ups are way more literal and actually tied to the movie. Mine are just like, I don't like food.
Peter Jackson said it was impossible, and as a result of it being impossible, I just started shooting the movie with most of it not prepared at all. So,
Jesus Christ. That actually is the thing that makes the most sense.
With this movie, that makes a ton of sense. It's like when Guillermo del Toro stopped, the script wasn't done, and then Peter Jackson came in, they're like, all right, we started shooting in 2 months. And he's like, wait, what? So they're playing catch up this whole movie. It shows in the way that he did Lord of the Rings. He had like 3 years of pre-production in total for the Lord of the Rings stuff. And in general, they just shot everything, and then they spent like 3 years editing the movie. I feel like he kind of did the same thing here. He's like, whatever, let's just shoot it and we'll figure it out later. And because of that, he had so much stuff that he was like, all right, yeah, like we can add this in. And although he decided to make it into 3 movies, he said it wasn't financially driven. But that seems hard to believe. If it's 2 movies, even if they're 2.5 hours long, you got 5 hours to fill. But now you got 3 movies, it's 7.5 hours, whatever the case is. So you can just pick everything up off the cutting room floor and start pasting it in there, copy and paste. So that kind of shows, and I didn't like it. So if you're going to have a $200 million movie, don't just change directors last minute. Did you have a favorite scene in this, like the White Council that you really liked?
The troll fire scene, and I liked the
troll
big,
fire scene. Oh, got you.
And I did like the main action scene inside the mountain there.
That was mine too. Escape from the goblins.
This is what the movie should be. If they just cut down the movie and literally took those 2 scenes and then made the rest of the movie into one movie, it would have been good. But
yeah.
Instead, they added 2 hours of fluff and then 30 minutes of good material.
And that's the type of silliness I'm for, when they're on a bridge and they cut ropes and it falls down a ledge and they're like killing people
it's like
as
Indiana
it's falling.
Jones
Yes,
silliness.
exactly. It's like obviously not believable. That would never happen. Totally okay with that. I hate people when you're watching a movie and they're like, that would never happen. It's like, well, sure, if we're watching, I don't know, some sort of like real serious movie, if we're watching Schindler's List, someone's like, yeah, that would never happen. It's like, shit, I don't know, like, I wasn't there. But with this, it's supposed to be playful. It's supposed to be fun. Yeah, I'm fine with that level of silliness, and it was enjoyable. That whole thing, it felt really like a ride. You know, you were on board. It was super fun. And also The goblins look phenomenal. Goblins and orc technically are the same thing in Tolkien's mind. They're just slightly different. But, these goblins are definitely different than the orcs visually, and they look really good. The Goblin King, I thought, was perfectly disgusting and goblin-y. It was awesome. So I'm here for it. All right, what'd you love about this here, The Hobbit by Peter Jackson?
I think they did a good job actually connecting some of the dots a bit more in terms of how they got to a certain place. In the book, which is fine, they kind of stumble on because it's not supposed to be some like guided thing that all makes sense. But in a movie, I feel you kind of have to tie things together a bit more. For instance, like The Hobbit just is like, and then I just stumbled down a path, and then there was Gollum, where they show like, okay, he dropped down this thing because he was trying to escape. There's like more dot connecting.
Although he falls like 80 feet and survives.
Yeah,
like,
that didn't really, that's old. He's spry.
Yeah,
he's
no,
spry.
I got it. I'm cool with it. Yeah, they weren't just kind of blindly stumbling along. I got you.
And I thought the troll scene, like I already mentioned, I thought that was funny. That was like an actual fun, not funny, but fun scene. And that was like, that came to life much more than I remembered in the book. So I thought that was really good too. Or are they goblins? I don't know.
No, they're
if
trolls.
Goblins
they're trolls.
Okay.
It's like Ed, and Eddie, or,
Yeah.
Gabriel, Ted, and John. I liked that scene as well. They did change it a bit, which I actually thought was okay. Because in the book, it's Gandalf that delays the trolls. He's like chatting with the trolls, and then the sun comes up. And in the movie, it's Bilbo that does it. So I think that works on two levels. One, it's Bilbo talking about like how to cook these dwarves, which ties in with Bilbo being a connoisseur of food and loving a good roast salmon. Two, it starts to show that Bilbo's worthiness to this group, to this fellowship. So I like that change. I was okay with it. Gandalf splitting the stone. Do it, Gandalf. Get crazy. Like I said, I loved the goblin stuff, the look of the goblins. Big fan of that. I love the Misty Mountains song. What do you think about that song?
The one by Ed Sheeran?
No, that's a different song that I don't think maybe they played in the end credits. That's a great song too. No, the one that all the dwarves say together, like, "Oh, misty mountainside, the winds were roaring." That one.
Yeah, I mean, I could take it or leave it. I honestly thought the music in this was not good. You had mentioned our last movie that the music was great, and I agreed. This one, the music, the beginning especially, it was almost like a silent movie. That they were playing so much music on just interactions and looks. And I was like, what is going on here? What's up with this? Why is there so much? I've never noticed music usually. If the music's good, you don't notice it. It's just like provides atmosphere. This was like in your face.
Yeah. What else do you love?
You agree with that?
I do. I do. I was thinking about it.
Okay.
I don't really know. You know what I mean? Like,
if you didn't recall it, then yeah, it's whatever. But you already mentioned it. But I like the expansiveness and the vastness of everything. That really showed well in the movie. You already mentioned like the budget they threw at it.
The idea is these guys are traveling 1,000 miles or however long, across this world to have to go to Erebor. So if you don't have those scenes in there where it shows the expansiveness of this land, then otherwise it's just a bunch of scenes and you don't like realize how close or how far they are, or even like just the general vastness of the land. So yeah, I agree with you there.
Well, yeah, and to that point, I think I told you I watched the first 20 minutes of this movie and turned it off, which the first 3 minutes, though, or like the narration where they're like, here's the backstory. I was ready to go. I was like, why did I ever turn this movie off? I was like, this is fucking sick. Unfortunately, the next 17 minutes, I was like, oh yeah, now I get it. Now I realize why I turned
so
this
that was
off.
my next and last love, was exposition, Basil exposition, because in Lord of the Rings, it's fire. I've never been more ready, especially when you watch all the Lord of the Rings in one day in the extended edition, which I have done on several occasions, and it's going to be like a 12-hour day of watching Lord of the Rings. I'm never more fired up than after the first 5 minutes when they're talking about the battle with Sauron. That really gets me going. And so they called it back for this, but doing a different thing, which is basically the opulence of Erebor and then Smaug coming and fucking shit up. Loved it. I was all in. And then after that, I was confused. And Lord of the Rings is also slow because it just falls into Bilbo's party, but some cool shit's coming. Unfortunately, with this, it kind of never came until you got to like the Goblin Kingdom. What do you hate?
I like the beginning part, and then we get 10 minutes with Frodo, which served zero purpose to the story other than to call him back and pander. And then we followed up by, and I literally looked at the minutes on, because I was watching on Amazon, 30 minutes. So the first 40 minutes of the movie were just them sitting in the house. It's an adventure movie. Why are we having 30 minutes in a hut? This is an expansive world. That's the whole point of the book. That's the whole point of the movie.
I'm going on an adventure.
Yeah, the book, you get why they do that is because you're establishing characters. No one knows what this is. It's the first time you've ever met any of these characters. The whole point of the Hobbit in the movie version is you can A, see the characters. You don't need to establish them. And B, we already have this backstory, Lord of the Rings. That's why you bring in all this pandering stuff, because we already know all this stuff. You don't need to sit them down for 30 minutes and be like, so this is the world we're in, and here are the people, and this is what we... No, just literally they should have been maybe a minute of them barging to his house, and then they pick him up, put him on a horse, and then the story starts. And they're telling them what they need to do when they're already in the adventure. Then you build background to the characters through that, not through sitting down. And this isn't fucking Gary Glenn Ross or like fucking Reservoir Dogs.
Did you watch Glengarry Glen Ross or something?
No, I haven't.
Because I did.
But this is... Oh, did you? I started watching Reservoir Dogs. But it's not Reservoir Dogs. You're not sitting in a room talking one-on-one. This is
Quentin Tarantino's not writing this.
Exactly. They thought they had that Quentin Tarantino writing, because this is the most boring shit ever.
They should have got Tarantino for like an uncredited writer and just had him do his version of a diner scene in Bilbo's house. It would have been awesome. I would have loved to see.
That would have been worth watching, but I would have 100% turned it off after 20 minutes again had we not been watching it for this, by the way. No chance. I was sticking with it.
My first hate is that I'm not sure who this movie is for, age-wise. Because The Hobbit is a kid's book, and it's supposed to be. Obviously, there's some dark moments in it, and it seems like that's where they were going with this, because I personally... When did it jump the shark for you?
It was when Frodo appeared, and they just stayed on him for 10 minutes, and I'm like, when does this movie start? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
That's when it jumped the shark.
See, it jumped the shark for me when they did the cleaning the dishes scene. Like, wash the dishes, scrub the knives, and they're, like, throwing dishes everywhere. I was like, this is so dumb. I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And I said, oh, wait, Dylan, hold on a second. Take a minute. This is a kid's movie. Like, this is for kids. You know, like, you're not the target audience. Like, I watched Monster Squad recently, which is a great kids movie. It's similar-ish to The Goonies, except there's, like, Dracula and Frankenstein in it. And there's a lot of cheesiness in there, too. And I was able to say, you know what? This is a kid's movie. I get it. But then, literally 5 minutes after that ridiculous scene of them tossing plates back and forth, it's the flashback to Azog the Great, the Defiler, cutting a guy's head off and holding his head aloft for the world to see. I was like, okay, hold on. Who is this movie for? Because no children should be seeing this guy chop a guy's head off and scream at the top of his lungs as he holds his dangle. It was like, we went from like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang to Braveheart in 2 seconds. I was blown away. So yeah, I wasn't really sure who the target audience was, and that's going to be a hate for me.
That's spot on. I didn't think of that.
Did you have anything to hate?
Yeah, I mean, the other ones I already kind of covered. I didn't understand who that tree mushroom hippie dude was. I still don't know. I think you explained it, but Madagascar, or what's that? Ratatouille? What's his name? Madagascar and Ratatouille combined?
the Brown, yep.
Okay. Thorin, he literally was in a different movie. I don't know if he knew. I think they showed him the movie. He's like, wait, this is a kid's movie? after. He's like, I was playing this. He's playing I think in his mind, he is playing, who's the badass in Lord of the Rings? The guy with the sword.
Aragorn.
Aragorn? Yeah. He thinks he's Aragorn in this movie. In this movie, he's not that, you know? Like, he read the wrong person, I think.
Aragorn, son of Arathorn. Yep. Got you.
Yeah. And then lastly, again, this might have been from Lord of the Rings, but who is Kate Blanchett, and does she have mind control powers?
She is.
Like, what happened with
that? She's high elf. She is Galadriel.
I love him. Much of a nerd you are with this.
She's a ring bearer. She's actually the focus of the Lord of the Rings TV show that just came out on Amazon. She has ability to kind of talk to people, you know, would telepathically.
Is she forcing Gandalf to do stuff, or no? Because Gandalf like put the map out and was like, "What did I just do?" And I'm like, "Wait, so Gandalf's a huge bitch and just like Kate Blanchett just run his mind?" Like,
I don't know exactly what her powers are or whether or not. I mean, I think a lot of that is probably just decisions by Peter Jackson. I think it worked well in Lord of the Rings because I think it was more of just like her talking with people like into their heads, but there wasn't any sort of able to move them. I don't know. They're two telekinetic powers, and I'm not sure the difference. But where telekinetic is being able to move it, and telepathy is, I don't know, whatever.
This movie would make literally zero sense if you didn't watch Lord of the Rings, right? You'd just be like, what is happening right now? You'd have no idea what's going on.
I mean,
for like half this movie.
I think Galadriel is like one of the best characters in Lord of the Rings for her screen time. You know, she's only on it for a couple minutes. And she's like beautiful, majestic, all those things. I appreciated her reprise here, but I know what you're saying. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for those that aren't well adjusted to it. The only other thing I had for hate was that the movie's too long. You know, the movie's more bloated than that Goblin King's goiter. You know, by the end of the movie, we're at page 190 of a 300-page book. How is it possible this is almost 3 hours long? 3 hour long movie, and we're only 190 pages into the book. It's unfortunate, and as a Lord of the Rings fan, it makes me upset because, wow, like they could have... I love the Lord of the Rings extended versions. Like, that's what I picture as the regular book, and that is a little fat. And I'm okay with it because there's not a lot of like stupid stuff. It's more just interesting things for Tolkien fans. This just seems like a lot of stupid stuff that was just thrown in there, and I don't know why. We've talked about that a lot. You know, we've bloated this podcast with talking about how bloated this movie is. So I don't want to talk about it anymore. Some quick studio notes. This is a 64 on Rotten Tomatoes, 83 audience score. Like I said, Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct it. Him and Jackson had previously planned to make a Halo movie together, which is how they like kind of got together and eventually started making The Hobbit. It's sad that didn't happen. This movie, The Hobbit, had a $200 million budget, similar for the other two movies. Lord of the Rings were each $100 million each. This movie, The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, made $300 million US and Canada and $1 billion worldwide. So 5-to-1 return on investment. Not too bad. Not too bad. Doesn't matter how good or bad the movie is. We're in like recast, rewrite, and review here.
Easy to say, but we'd obviously both, I think, do book 100% over movie if we were to recommend one of them.
Yeah, I think that's clear. And I did, one thing I did kind of like is they made the Arkenstone like the thing. Before it was just kind of like, in the book it was just like the horde.
I like that too.
So in this they're like, no, we're going for the Arkenstone. Like, yeah, they want everything else, but the Arkenstone is the difference maker. Like, that's what's going to make Thorin king is by having the Arkenstone. So I like that.
And one thing too that I think most books and movie variations we're gonna point to the fact that they didn't stick to the book did, and that makes it worse. In this instance, they stuck too much to the book in some instances. I already mentioned the first scene where they're just in the house. That's like word for word, and it's 40 minutes of them in the house. And it's like, this is every single part of the book's in this. You didn't need to do that. The other part was the Gollum interaction. I thought that was cool in the book, but I was like, they'll definitely change that to make it more, one, relevant. And you already mentioned, if it's a kid's movie, you're telling these like advanced riddles. They
cut down on the advanced riddles.
Well, they still did 3 or 4,
right?
Right?
They did like 3.
I also couldn't understand what Gollum was saying as an answer, so I kept being like, what? Like, I think he said teeth in one of them, but I had no idea what he said.
It's like 32 white horses.
Yeah, and I was like, teeth? I think he's saying.
Because he said, I only have 9 of them.
They could have made that scene better. I mean, there's a lot of stuff where they just stuck with the book, and when they did that, it's like, it's in the book for a reason. You know, it's like you need to draw it out and like make it real, whereas movie, you don't need to do that as much, but they still did it. So
yeah, it needs some editing down, clearly. Our top reviewer, though, comes from Richard Propes from theindependentcritic.com, who starts his review with, and I quote, "As nearly any woman will tell you, size does matter. But there is such a thing as too big and too long." That's how he starts his review. I can't believe I dug this up. Like,
can we get this guy in the pod? All right, I like this guy a lot.
Size does matter, but there is such a thing as too big and too long.
By the way, is the most insane thing ever is that this movie would qualify for my Rotten Tomato variance? That's what's insane.
No, that's not. I don't think that's crazy. I'm surprised. I think the audience, anyone who's going on and
shocked.
rating this on Rotten Tomatoes, is probably a fan.
You think they got through 20 minutes, so they're like, all right.
Well, I will defend the movie in that the second half is better than the first half.
It's 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's saying an hour and 20 is garbage.
Yeah, not garbage necessarily, but just not great. And the second half, though, once they enter the Goblin Kingdom and that becomes Under the Misty Mountains, like that becomes the story, it's pretty good from there on out. In my opinion. So maybe watch the troll scene, skip until they get to the goblin stuff, and then you're good. So what did you rate it? How many stars we got? Would you recommend it? Is it for diehard fans or stoners? Who's it for?
I don't know who it's for. It's kids that smoke weed, maybe? I don't know. I gave it a 1 star. It would have been a 0.5 to 0 range had the second half not saved it. But even with the savior of the end, the ending itself just abruptly ending, and the Dumb and Dumber scene, all those things just reminded me. Like, that drove home. I was like, oh yeah, the beginning half of this movie did suck. I forgot about that. You know, like that was like the stamp of it being like, no, remember, this movie does suck. So 1 star from me. What about you?
Yeah, it starts off so shitty, like it's not better. You're like, oh, okay, it's
you're like, oh, this wasn't that
and
bad.
And if it finished good, you would be like, no, that's actually decent.
Think it was that bad movie.
But then they brought it all back down.
Yeah, that was nice of them to do.
Yeah,
that.
I gave it a 2 star. I mean,
wow. Okay.
Trust me, I was with you. This was like a 1 star minus movie up until the goblin scene, but after that, I enjoyed it, and the ending wasn't good. But I'm just a huge Tolkien fan. I would love for them to make.
Are you
more.
going to watch the second and thirds right now?
I
after
started.
This,
I started the second,
okay,
and I realized I hate it so much.
Yeah, I mean, if it were a 2-star movie, I'd probably potentially give the second and third a try. But yeah, a 1 star, you don't give a sequel a try, you know? So that's, I guess, the difference.
So yeah, that's The Hobbit, Unexpected Journey. We will not be jumping into the next 2. We're just going to leave it there. We got our next book coming up, Foundation. It should be a doozy. It's a sci-fi classic. Wait for the Foundation coming up within the next couple weeks. And like I said, that was Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. Keith, great talking to you, brother.
Bye
All right, bye now.